the internal dynamics of working for an insurance company. Um, but if we don't want to do that, we'll be done earlier. So, and I alluded to this a little bit earlier, but so the technical price um, is the price you get. A lot about pricing models and data analytics, and trend analysis and review emerging experience. I'm gonna call that the technical price. And then there's what the market is, and they call that the market price. Um, and and they don't always align, especially if you've got competitors who are looking to who price deliberately lower than what is sound, what is sustainable, because they're trying to get market share. And that is a common but occasionally dangerous strategy for an insurance company to play. Um, so, and there's sort of a trade-off in that between, okay, we're going to price really low to get a bunch of sales right now, get market share. Um, and if that's your goal, and if I don't know if the CEO is told by the board of directors, get market share, that's your number one job, then they're probably going to do that, right? But if the goal of the company, which hopefully it is long-term sustainability, then you need to take a more nuanced and balanced view. And one tool that we do to evaluate these different tensions and these different risks and actually put the numbers to market versus technical price is a very simple little spreadsheet projection. Uh, call it a pro forma, and just use it to test decisions. So, so, and a pro forma basically is we're going to project over an extended period of time, more than just 1 year. So, and I'm using the example here on the slide. Oh, of 5 years. Doesn't have to be five, could be 3 or 2. But do an actuarial projection at the premium rates being charged. Here's the revenue we'll get. Based on my technical analysis, here's the expected claims we think we'll have. Um, and then similarly, based on our internal admin expense model and commission structure, here's what this will cost. And then here's a projected enrollment level. All of these are judgment calls, but it's worth doing the work and then generate projected gains or losses. And then you do that over multiple years. How much are we going to rate our increases our rates every year? How much will claims go up every year? And just look at how the financial impact compounds over time. And it can sometimes be quite eye-opening because when you're talking about, because when you set your rates low, you're presumably going to get a lot of insureds, a lot more insureds than you would otherwise. And if those low rates are set at a way that are going to actually generate um, financial losses, the premiums will not be adequate to cover claims and admin expense, then the accumulated volume of those losses in aggregate can get quite large over time. Um, and having this sort of very simple 3 year, 5 year pro forma model, again, it's not something you file with a regulator. It's just for internal purposes and for internal discussion purposes. Um, can be, really a very powerful tool. And I've used it with my clients over the course of my career, and it's always been effective in communicating with management about what the downstream impact of their business decisions now is. And um, so and I kind of talked about this, but cheap but popular. can lead to worse results than small and but sustainable. If by worse you mean, um, you know, large financial losses and making the company insolvent. Um, and so, but you know, if you've got loss making growth, you're going to erode internal capital, and it's just not, as we said, it's sustainable. Any questions on this? Hi, yes.
Hello. I have one question about if we have some kind of cheap but popular live business, but we can have other live business making profit to subsidize that live business making loss. So is it okay to grow like that? Some kind of when we have very competitive retail in business, so we accept making loss on growing retail, but in corporate we making profit. Yeah, we got yeah, usually like property you have make experience profit in most of the time, but making loss in some scenario when storm or flood coming. Yeah, so usually in normal scenario we can make profit going like that. Yeah, so is it
Yeah.
okay to go like that?
Well, okay. Um, uh, you know, if you're like if pricing one of your products at a deliberate loss is a clear, thought out business strategy that will result in the overall good for the company, which is what I think you just described. You price one product low, but then you sell other products that are profitable and there's subsidization going on. That's fine, and that's a common business strategy. There are certain, at least in the U.S., there are certain times that the regulator may not accept that, because they want products to stand on their own. But otherwise, I mean, in my mind, and that's again, it's a value of the pro forma. Do a company wide pro forma and see how that works. Then you've made a deliberate business choice, and you've proven to yourself it's not putting the company at financial risk. That's great. Um, I'll note when you in a situation where, um, the market price your competitors are charging is materially or somewhat less than what you've calculated should be the price based on your analysis. Um, it's not just simple. We have to cut rates to meet market. Um, there are other approaches that can be helpful. One is adjusting benefit designs. So there's like many levers you can pull to to manipulate the situation. Um, one is adjusting benefits. One is reducing administrative expenses. Now that's reducing administrative expenses has always been one of those things where, people say, well, let's reduce administrative expenses. It's always harder to do it than it is to say it. But you know, in concept, that's a thing you could do. Um, I talked earlier about provider contracting. Pang has talked at length about the importance of provider contracting. But if you're in a market where provider contracting, provider networks, and network products are common, um, it could be that your competitor is charging lower rates, but they're actuarially sound for that competitor because they've got better deals with their providers. Um, and then step up pricing. So maybe you do start at a market rate and you gradually glide towards the technical rate over time. Those are just some possible approaches. And yeah. So my last part here, I'm going to pivot to balancing internal pressures. And this is the part where I think it would be more engaging and more um, beneficial to everyone if we heard some stories from the audience, or we could be done earlier. It's up to you. Um, but I made the I made the I made the kind of flippant remark earlier today that the chief marketing officer always wants the premium rates lower, and the uh, chief financial officer always wants them higher. And that's the sort of internal pressure I'm talking about here. And that's a real thing. And just um, it's not that always just that simplistic. A, a company will typically have internal goals, internal budgets. This is our sales target for the year. This is our profit target for the year, and what have you. And those goals may not align very well with actual reality, and that creates tension and pressure within an insurance company. Um, and again, similar to market pressures, is a trade-off between what is your short-term budget, what are you trying to achieve this year, versus what is necessary for the long-term sustainability of the company. Um, and the key here is, in my experience, is 40 years as a consulting actuary, communication and explaining to management, if you do this, these are the consequences. If you do this is the consequence, and so forth. Really laying out in clear language what the consequences are, is valuable. And the point I make here is, budgets are not the same as prices. The budget may say we want 100 new sales and or 20% profit next year, and we've done our analysis, and we've gotten our data in order, and we have um, studied our trends and done all the technical work we talked about earlier today. And it may say, well, given the state of the market, only 50 sales is possible, or 10% profit is realistic. And the key here is, if you force your technical assumptions that you've done based on good faith actuarial work, using the best data you can get your hand on, using the techniques the best you can, um, forcing those technical assumptions to fit the budget leads to bad results. And I'm sort of like presuming here the actuary's goal is to get premium rates that are sustainable and appropriate, actuarially sound. And so, again, that causes surprises or conflicts within an insurance company many times. Um, so I've alluded to a few of these, but some common internal pressures are sales goals, pushing for lower prices, and then conversely, uh, profit or return on capital targets from the CFO. Um, but then there's also like a third dimension is operations and IT. You may want to implement a cool new rating system. Let's say you're able to get through and you're implementing a claims-based pricing system in Vietnam that is similar to the one Pong described for Singapore. Um, But if your operations can't administer it, and if your IT system can't administer it, if you can't track how many claims a person has had so you know which bucket to put them in, that's a limit on how you can do that. So typically um, there's a pressure coming from operations to simplify products. So I lay out here kind of a framework for balancing these pressures, and I said it in terms of, like, let's not just look at a 1 year window. Let's look at a multi-year window, um, so that we can really be looking at not just market share, but long-term sustainability, and various options for ways to improve, lower the internal costs, and or increase revenue, And you can use this 5-year pro forma to kind of visualize that path. Um, and then also you can measure your risk capacity. Um, Depending on your own insurance company's surplus level, capital level. Um, my understanding is that risk-based capital is being implemented or has been recently implemented in Vietnam. Risk-based capital requires that you keep your insurance company capitalization above a level. Um, and you can test that with, well, if we lose a bunch of money on our health insurance, is it going to be uh, consequential? And I'll say, like your example about, well, you've got other non-life lines that maybe are profitable. It's interesting because my mindset, and I'm not saying this is right, but just my bias, um, in the U.S., health insurance companies typically only write health insurance. That's their only line of business. And so it's like in the U.S., we've got life insurance companies, non-life insurance companies, and health insurance companies, 3 kinds instead of 2 kinds. And so if all you write is health insurance business, your risk of insolvency can be pretty substantial. Um, I'm gonna pause here and invite audience participation if anybody wants to share. Is there a situation you would like to share or talk about where you yourself or you witnessed in your company something similar to what I talked about here, where there are conflicting goals from different parts of management, and the actuarial interests may be at odds with other parts of management. So, who wants to share something? Okay, going once. Okay, we'll keep going. Okay, we're almost done. Um, so just to recap what I just talked about, uh, there are pressures any actuary working in health insurance faces, external pressures like markets and competitors, internal pressures, management goals. There are tools that you can use to address those uh, and try to reconcile those different pressures. And the overall goal is to make it like make sure you know what your company is going in a direction where the management understands the consequences of its decision. And if you've accomplished that, if it's an informed decision to pursue this strategy, then that's fine. And that concludes my remarks. Um, so any further questions or comments today? Anything online? Okay. Yes. It's not on.
Okay, okay, it works. One thing I'm kind of curious. We mentioned earlier on the lot ratio control with the health related, and with healthcare specifically, it introduced a combined ratio when we evaluate whether the medical insurance product that works or not, really something that we have sustainable ratio. And here in Vietnam, we also have the commitment with regulatory on the certain lot ratio for health in specific. But I'm curious to know what should be the acceptance range of that for lot ratio and also combined ratio with health
What's the
insurance.
acceptable like overall level of combined ratio?
Yes.
Well, it depends on the company's situation. Um, and and I'm gonna put basically it depends on how much capital. It depends on how much capital the company has. So a combined ratio of 102%, perhaps you're generating 2%. That's 102% is an example. If you're generating 2% investment income on your portfolio, and maybe 102% is sustainable forever. It depends on your company's situation. My 40 years of experience tell me I get very worried if that combined ratio is over 100%. But I have seen situations where 102% goes on because of investment income on the portfolio, on the investment asset portfolio. And was there a question about loss ratio too? Loss ratio depends so much on the product, because if it's a very expensive product, a very rich benefit product, the loss ratio I would expect to be higher because you've got just because the premium's larger. So 20% of a large premium is a lot more than 20% of a small number. But that's going to differ depending on the specifics of the market. Like I said, in the US, we've got regulation that require like 85% loss ratio. But that's with premiums that are very, very, very high. So that may not be realistic in this market. Someone wants to speak?
Okay, now I can.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, I hear that the speaker want the audience share some the real situation in the market. I want to raise the one issue in the market now. Is it related to experience rating? In the previous year, the experience of the one customer is very bad. Let's say the claim ratio is 90%, 100% or higher than that. But when the customer renew the policy, the the original insurance company will, based on the claim ratio, will calculate the renewal rate for that company, which is higher than the current premium. But the pressure is not internal. Yeah, it's the external pressure. Another insurance company come and they quote the lower price, and the customer will go away. Let's see the first situation. I would like to hear the possible solution from you. And the internal pressure is that some people inside the company also want to write that customer because of the revenue pressure internally. Let's say the insurance company under pressure of a growth at 10% a year, and this is the middle of the year. The growth rate is just, let's say, several percent. An insurance company want to achieve the 10% target, and they will sacrifice profits and they will write the bad experience customer. That's the internal pressure we face almost, yeah, very often in our business operation. So the external and internal pressure currently in the market nowadays in Vietnam. And I would like to share with you, and we would like to listen the possible solution from you. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing your observations and your experience. That was interesting. Anybody else? Queenie, Jerry, any last words? Turn over to Mai. Floor is yours. Okay, we have one more.
Okay. There's often a conflict between target profit margin and sustainability, and I believe this issue exists across all lines of insurance business. One example is expenses. If you price using full expenses, your product may become uncompetitive in the market. However, if you use marginal expenses, the question is whether the pricing is sustainable in the long run. Since many assumptions, such as sales and cost, are based on future estimates that can differ significantly after 1 year.
Got to cover overhead somewhere. I was just gonna say, I mean, and I've seen this, from time to time with when you price a product only allocating marginal expenses, then some product somewhere is going to cover your overhead, and so if you price the product only pricing at marginal expenses, either you have to think it through of eventually you're going to grade those premiums up to so it covers its share of allocated overhead, or that product will forever be existing on marginal expenses only, and essentially the rest of the business is subsidizing it by covering all the overhead.
There's another question that's following. How to deal with the case when the management want to increase market share by reducing premium, arguing that the increase of revenue will mask the increase in loss ratio, accounting for loss ratio by financial year, not by underwriting year.
Every bird has to come home to roost. I mean, well, I talked about the pro forma, right? Showing them in a simple arithmetic, clear example. These are the financial consequences over not just this year, but next year and the year after of this decision path. That's and if they see that and they understand it and they buy it and they still decide to underprice, well, you've done your job. And maybe it's
There's a comment like that. If the slides can be shared, yes, it can be shared, and we will share the slides with all the participants through IAV or UNDP. Yeah.
Teacher. Bây giờ là chương trình thì xong rồi, và thì một là bế mạc, nếu mà không thì có phát chứng chỉ. Ok. Cảm ơn các anh chị đã ngồi đến tận giờ phút cuối này để tham gia buổi tập huấn ngày hôm nay. Thank you very much for your participation and also a very attentive attendance for the training course today. So if you don't have any question, we would like to come to the conclusions of the training today, and also for the certificate giving. And we will share the documentations, the presentations of the trainings by email through your registration email, and welcome. We also welcome from further discussion in this topic. And if you the survey, yes. Yeah, as you know that the gain and this training activity is one of the series of the capacity building for the Vietnam market conducted by Milliman and UNDP within this year and also for the following year. So we would like to hear for your feedback in terms of the implementation, and also like your proposal recommendation for what should be done next to best suit the need of the market, and from the each of you in the so that we can better plan and desire the activity to meet your demand. So here is the form and the QR code for the evaluation feedback. So please spend 2 minutes to do so.
Yeah, if we can just do 5 minutes before you get your certificate. If you don't do the form, no certificate.
Nó nằm ở trong cái slide. Dạ. But you can also do it now. Yeah. Năm phút. Xong sẽ gọi lên. Then we will like handle the certificate. Maybe I will invite the group of 4 or 5 people. Yeah, so that we can save time.